Hi, everyone, and welcome to the AWS Public Sector Summit. Before we begin, a couple housekeeping items. So the door that you entered through is also your emergency exit. Please silence your cell phones for the duration of this session. And lastly, make sure to download the Public Sector Summit app so that you can give us your survey feedback for this session. We do take it very seriously and act upon it. So without further ado, welcome to the session entitled AI for Good, Harnessing AI and ML to Transform Your Mission and Literally Save the World. We have an amazing panel for you today of organizations who are leveraging AI and ML to solve complex public policy and humanitarian problems that have an impact on really everyone in this room. They're not here just to share their experiences and expertise, though. The goal is that you all walk away with some tips and tricks and thoughts so that you can go on your own AI and ML journey. And please welcome our panelists now. So we've got Ranju Das, who is our Director of Amazon Recognition at AWS. Ranju will be our moderator today. We've got Ray Davis, who is the Senior Director of Technology and Data Science with Compassion International. Also, we have Akanbi Wally, co-founder and CTO of Ayala Credit. And lastly, on the end, we've got Emily Cashman-Kirstein, Senior Manager of Government Affairs for Thorn. So welcome to all of our panelists. Thank you.
Thanks, Leila. So thanks for being here with us. I think the mission that each of you have and your organizations is really leading examples of how technology and particularly AI ML can be used for social good. And we are super excited to be a partner in that journey with you folks. When we started our AWS machine learning and AI journey, we took a mission, and our mission was to get some of these hard, complex kind of machine learning technologies in hand of every developer. And it's really delightful to see that that mission has chimed well with your mission and the sort of impact you're able to have within kind of society at large, but also within your particular problem spaces. So without boring the audience anymore, let's jump in. And again, thank you for being here with us. I think audience would love to start with understanding what's your mission and how do you see machine learning specifically kind of enabling that mission. I think why don't we start with that? Emily, why don't you get us started?
Of course, yeah. So thanks, everyone. Thank you to AWS and Ranju and fellow panelists. It's really exciting to be here talking about these important issues. Just to give a little bit of background on Thorn, we are a nonprofit, but we function very much like a tech startup. And our mission is to build technology to defend children from sexual abuse. And we do that in a number of ways, and one of them is utilizing AI and machine learning to speed up child sex trafficking investigations and help with victim ID. So we know that technology didn't create the problem of child sexual exploitation and trafficking, but it certainly made it so much more accessible to so many more people to a degree that we had never anticipated. So when we're talking about scale, in the United States, there are 200,000 ads posted per day online for sex. And within those pile of ads are children being bought and sold for sex. And so what we're trying to do in Spotlight is utilize AI and machine learning technologies to be able to sift through that data and bring to the surface who we believe to be a child to then assist with victim identification and recovery.
Thank you, Emily. Wally, what about you guys have a very interesting use case. I think it'll be great to have the audience hear that as well.
Okay, thanks, Ranju. For us, it's one of those important things to be able to provide credit in emerging markets. For example, we're currently in Nigeria, and access to credit is very, very, very hard, very difficult. Back then, like 4 years ago when we started, we were trying to, my partner and I were trying to get some form of credit, and it took us weeks to actually get that done. And a lot of people that are actually approaching us in our market currently, our customers, most of them actually want the money like for healthcare, for education, and they can't wait for weeks. They only have some minutes or hours to actually do that. So using machine learning and facial recognition to actually look at each of these customers, profile them in seconds, and provide our credit within seconds, everything done within seconds. So this has actually, we've gotten a lot of feedback from people that are the banks. These are underbanked and unbanked people. And they've been able to get back to us and say, hey, without you guys, our kids will be out of school. We'll be on the street. But we've been able to bridge that particular gap using AI.
Thank you. How about yours, Ray?
Yeah, Compassion is focused on releasing children from poverty, and we do that through holistic child development. And we are honored to be able to serve 2 million kids worldwide today. However, we also recognize there are 400 million kids who are living in extreme poverty, so the need is great. And as we look to the future, we're starting to ask questions around what else needs to be true as to how we can serve the most children possible. From a data science standpoint, very simply, we look to say, how can we take data and turn it into a weapon to fight poverty? And then from the overall technology standpoint, we also look to say, how can we take the things that we learn, combine that with things that other mission-driven organizations have learned and other organizations like Amazon to be able to create new solutions and then share them across the board.
Thank you. I think, to kind of get the audience a little bit more clearer picture, it'll be great if you guys can share your kind of AI/ML journey, what challenges you faced in that, and just because I'm in the stage, also tell us how you felt AWS ML and AI stack helped you in that journey. Ray, why don't?
Yeah, we have kind of a funny story because we are an older organization. We're over 65 years old now. And at the same time that we were starting to present our data science vision, we had an opportunity where we were talking about just a tactical problem we had with being able to register children and having duplicate registrations, which creates a significant challenge when a child gets sponsored by two different people. So we were just talking through tactically on that, and we asked a couple questions around, well, how does this happen? Well, a child registers twice, and the person registering them spells the name differently. So we asked, could we use something that checks if they sound similar, or we take a picture of each child? Could we use facial recognition to be able to determine if it's likely this child has already been registered? And I watched everyone in the room's face just drop. You would think I just stepped off the Starship Enterprise at that point. And so we set forward to say, okay, we have a hackathon coming up. Let's just prove the point. We created a group, myself and a couple of other directors, not our engineers, and looked to see, could we develop facial recognition for child registration? And in that 2-day hackathon, we were able to build it and show the model that, yes, these ideas they're not crazy. You can use data science and apply solutions quickly. Similarly, we were then able to participate in re:Invent's social good hackathon as well, and we were able to demonstrate using real-time translation and how we could communicate with people between different countries. And again, that solution was developed quickly. So it really helped us to show that these are not science fiction. This is reality. This is stuff we can do today. And that's really helped us to start getting over that hurdle, and now we're in the journey of it becomes part of our culture, part of our mindset as we move forward.
And how did the AWS and AWS machine learning specifically help you in that? Was that part of an enablement that you could benefit from?
Yeah, so we, even from a cultural standpoint, we also follow the model of being customer obsessed. So we've learned from that aspect, but that allows us to start with a story. So even when we talk about real-time translation, what we're looking to do is say, how can we build empathy between a supporter and a child in the model we use today? If I communicate, it takes weeks, and that's not how most of us build relationships naturally. So how could we get greater empathy in that space? And what we found is real-time translation is the hurdle to that. That created our MVP, and then again using transcribe, translate, poly, and then some own custom ML related to child protection of communication. We're able to build a solution, again, very, very rapidly. A lot of it was prepackaged APIs. There are things that Amazon has already opened up. So we were able to build a majority of it very quickly and then apply, really maybe 20% of it was custom ML at that point.
That's cool. Thank you. Wally, what's your experience with in the AI/ML journey, and where do you think AWS helped you in that journey?
I think end-to-end AWS actually helped us all through. When we first started, we were getting about tens of applications per week. back then in 2015. Then fast forward to 2016, we were getting hundreds and thousands. But it wasn't just scaling. We needed to actually move faster. We needed to impact more lives. Then we get each application with photo on it, with different things that have actually been attached, photo ID, different things. But each individual, like our staff members, would have to check it one after the other and say, okay, fine, is this human being? Does this correlate with the photo ID? What are the risks that are actually associated with this particular profile? So we did that for 2 years, and it wasn't just scaling. We had about 50,000 customers. And in 2017, we kind of scaled to like 100,000 plus. And at that point, we couldn't just keep doing it over and over again. Like, we then have to get probably a room packed with a lot of people checking everything, because we were getting all these requests like, hey, people, my child is out of school. How would you help me? And then we had a stack of hundreds of thousands of applications that we couldn't just handle. So we tried the team started searching for how we can actually automate the process, and then we tried some other solutions. And because of the peculiarity of our market, most of them actually failed. So some of them couldn't dictate faces properly and all of those. Then we tried the recognition, and lucky for us, it actually got the faces right. And then we reached out to the Amazon team for some other adjustment, and it was so rapid and fast how the team actually reached out to us, and then we got everything done very, very fast. So from the identity verification, which was a huge problem for us initially, we were able to get that solved, and then all the 100,000 applications were done in like 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and everybody actually got what they wanted. So,
Wally, for your use case, because I know a little bit, could you tell the audience a little bit about the market that you're serving and the sort of customers you're getting this high value to?
Yes. So initially, we're getting a lot of underbanked. We started with that set of people. They were people that didn't have that much of, I would say, low-income earners. So they were not people that had the money or the means to actually do anything. And we started seeing a change in pattern. A lot of women started coming, and these are people that really do not have any other business than just the mini migrant kind of payment that they had. It was a very small payment that most of them actually had from data that we got. And then when they started taking our credit, and we started giving them the credit line, we saw that most of them actually deployed towards businesses, and then they started building their businesses, and then we kind of like, you know what, we want to help your businesses. And we started from there again by actually extending financial literacy to these people, to our customers. Most of them, then we started having multiplication. A lot of women started doing more businesses and education. That has been the two major use cases for our credit. And yes, we're so proud.
And which countries are you today mostly offering this service to?
Right now, we're in Nigeria. We're exploring Philippines, but right now we're 90% in Nigeria. But we're currently exploring Philippines too.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Emily, I know I've worked with Thorn quite closely, and I know you guys have a mission to use technology to save kids. How has AI/ML kind of helped in the journey, and how have you used leverage AWS overall in that journey?
For sure, yeah. So when our co-founders back in 2012, Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore, kind of asked our team, when they wanted to tackle the issue of child sex trafficking, they asked our team to do a detailed survey of the field to understand the landscape, the gaps, where could we be a value add. And a huge part of that was a survivor survey. So it was 250 survivors of child sex trafficking, 24 survivor organizations. And among the many things that we found out through that survey was that 3 out of 4 underage sex trafficking victims were at one point advertised online. So knowing that there was this technological component, how could we solve for that? So when we're talking about kind of the landscape and how things are changing, we have had to go from that in 2012 to, through how things have changed and market shifts. And what we're looking at now is being on multiple sources, continuing to grow. We're talking about, like I said, 200,000 ads per day, but also duplicate ads, fake ads. There's just noise that at the scale of this this data, how can we leverage and go down? So we're trying to be nimble in utilizing AI and machine learning with intelligent image analysis and natural language processing. And specifically with AWS, we're using the EC2 Intel processing, we're using recognition, Lambda, and others that is helping us kind of find that needle in the haystack, finding the ads of children. And to date, Spotlight, our users have said that it has helped in identifying over 9,000 child victims. That averages about 8 kids per day and is saving about 65% of investigative time.
It's amazing, amazing. Just these just honestly, personally reminds me why I chose to be in technology, and at times your work reminds me of that more than my own, but thank you for that. In AI ML, I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience has this question. Data is a big part of it, right? And so, how do you think of data? What is your strategy around using data, policy of data? Emily, let's start with you. There's a lot of concern about data privacy. And I was chatting with Julie, your CEO, last week about the same thing. Can you give us a sense of how do you see data privacy? Like, give the audience a sense of the sort of images you're using and where they're sourced from, so that, and how do you ensure that it's private, it's protected, it's secure, and it's legal?
Sure. So what I would just say in general is that there is an important and necessary conversation to be had about balancing privacy, innovation, and child protection in particular. This is true for child sex trafficking. It's also true for child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, what's legally defined as child pornography. So I say that. And as far as Thorn's concerned, we always start from the human experience and move forward in understanding how data and machine learning and AI can be involved in that. That's true from our inception, and having that survivor survey to help us understand, could data be used here and how? And it's true in how we focus our tools now. So child sex trafficking is a human problem, but technology has added this layer of data, of big data, that we need to get through to find children. And so what we're trying to do is utilize searches for publicly available data. So we're talking phone numbers, keywords, perhaps inputting the image of a missing child, to be able to narrow that data for another human intervention, to be reviewing potential matches and results, and eventually lead to, hopefully, victim identification and recovery.
Good. So just to be clear, the data set that you're using, there's a part of it which you're getting from agencies which are of missing children, and then the others are public domain ads that are showing up with these kids' faces in them. Great. How about you? How do you see the data aspects within your ALA credit journey? Is that how are you ensuring it's the privacy, the security of customer data? It'd be good to understand how.
Okay, so for us, we've actually developed our system to be end-to-end closed, so we don't actually expose any of our customers' data to any third party. We have a very closed system, but our legal team and our data team are actually working towards a more strict process, a more stricter process where we create more stringent rules how we actually undo this data, and they're actually working with the regulators to make sure that we're actually operating within the context of regulation.
And just for the audience, I know we talked about it a few months ago. I think accuracy of face recognition for kind of this specific customer base that you have was an important aspect of your. Yes. Could you give a sense of why that was so important, and how did you find the product to do it?
Okay. Identity verification is the most important part of our process, because when two people actually come for a single person actually claims to be two different individuals to access credit, it's one of those things that actually breaks our heart, not just business-wise, but impact-wise, because some people want to take advantage of our business model to actually help people. But one of those things that this has actually done is to reduce fraud. Fraud is a huge thing in our system, and the facial recognition, accuracy of facial recognition has actually helped us to actually solve that problem. So we initially were very specific about the accuracy of the facial recognition, because in the market we had about 50%, 60%, and then when we start having identical twins, we start having problems around that. And AWS, the team, we worked together month on month to actually solve this problem, and the accuracy actually went from like 65% to about 90-something%, and that has actually helped us create face sets that we can actually run through all the faces in our system in very like millisecond to be able to identify any potential fraud and solve this particular problem. So accuracy of facial recognition and photo ID is kind of very crucial to us, and AWS has actually solved that for us.
Good to hear that. Ray, I know you started talking about having a lot of access to data, and data is a big part of enabling some of this impact that you're having. It'll be good to understand how you have taken that approach for data strategy.
Yeah, so as we say, we want to be good stewards of the data that's been provided to us. We do mean that on both sides. We mean it in maybe the traditional sense of how we're protecting the data, and also how we're using that data to turn it into a weapon to fight poverty. And we want to take that very seriously. So we take a security by design approach. We don't want to have to deal with moving data around because a compliance-based initiative has caused us to do that. That's usually the last position we want to be in. One of the ways we've tactically accomplished that is to say we've broken our data into 3 core categories. There's core identity data, then there's personally identifiable data, and then there are all the features that, when separated from the other 2, are no longer identifiable. And most of our AI and ML are going to come from those features. So once you're able to abstract the 2 from each other, you have a lot of opportunity to create new value without the risk of jeopardizing your customers or people who have entrusted their data to you, that data.
Could you give us an example of what those 3 categories, like with a practical example of what those 3 categories would look like?
Yeah, so in identifiable data, we could be talking about biometric data, something that would allow you to authenticate into a system overall. So obviously username, passwords, but also biodata as well. The second category is traditional PII, and that your name, address, phone number, that type of information. And then the last category is then it's all the attributes that are about a person as well, or about a thing. But in general, when we're talking about protection, we're mostly talking about people. And those features, you could have thousands, 10,000s of those. And that's where usually we're abstracting that out, and that's what we would perform any machine learning on. And they could be anything from information around the community you live in to other demographics. There's a variety of things, or to fields that we've already engineered, their indexes that we've created from other data as well.
Yeah, awesome. So, well, this is a bit of a stage question, because I think you guys have used AI ML in a very practical way, and I've seen some real value for your customers and the impact you want to have. But as I look around, there's a lot of hype around AI and ML, right? There's a lot of frosting, a lot of hype, a lot of hand waviness. Could you give us a sense of how did you cut through that? What did you do to get to the core of what helps you with AI ML, as opposed to this kind of chasing the hype in the market?
Yeah, and I love, and as I'm hearing some of the other stories, when organizations have a technology foundation into how they're starting, that isn't necessarily Compassion's story. So, I think for many mission-driven organizations that have been around for some time, they're actually playing catch-up with it. We may have come into the AI game, or even technology strategy, a little bit late. And now we want to start reversing that trend as well. So that's been a lot of our story, is how do we bring people along to understand the value of technology and creating value for our customers? And that then becomes the key. Is we start with a customer story. What is it we're actually trying to do? Because there's a lot for some of us, the math and the science behind AI is really exciting. That's not what most people in the organization are going to trigger on. So we work from what is that story we want to tell, and then creating real value. Get out of the hypothetical as quickly as possible and get value to that customer. That ultimately is what we've seen change mindsets.
It's awesome. I mean, it's great to hear that, because I think when we talk to customers, we talk about culture being an essential part, and I think that's a big part of what we talk about too, kind of the customer story. You sound like an Amazonian, by the way, with all this customer story and working backwards. So, Emily, how about you? How did you guys choose where and how to use AI/ML as opposed to this general hype around,
Totally.
time machine that could be built using AI/ML?
Absolutely. I think for us, it was very practical as an organization that was built on building technology. It was figuring out what the best way to do that was. And I think we came along and we're talking about how things changed and how we had to leverage different types of this technology to solve for a problem that's continually changing. And, to just cite an example of how we were able to kind of move with the times. There was a point in time where, traditionally when we were, building the tool, we were talking about ad copy in these ads for sex online that was in text. And we were able to use different technologies to collect that data. What happened a couple of years ago was that text ended up going into, there's a trend that it became put in photos, that whether it was a watermark or a text overlay or someone was taking a picture of an ad and uploading the photo, it created a technological issue for us as far as being able to take out that data to lead to victim ID. So what we're able to do is actually use detect text to be able to normalize that data, make it searchable again, and that's just a part of kind of the journey and how we, an example of how we continue to be working that in.
And do you see further opportunities that as you're taking this journey, and I know as I speak to Julie, I hear this, both the number of children that you're able to save, but also the reaction time is an important optimization for you folks. So
100%. I mean, when you're talking about a missing child, time is critical. And if we're able to have the opportunity to be getting that information to investigators as quickly as possible, knowing that we are on a day-to-day basis looking at 200,000 ads, how can we narrow that data quickly? And that's what we've been able to do.
Good to hear. Wally, how about you? How about, did you, when you started this journey, you are your co-founder, did you guys decide to build a product using AI/ML, or is it as you started building the product, you chanced upon the benefit of AI/ML?
I think it was very clear from the beginning that we couldn't scale except we were able to automate that particular process. So my partner, being a business person, was like, how can we actually do it efficiently and cost effectively? So that was the key, and then the whole team kind of went on rampage. We had about 80% engineers on how can we actually automate this process. Then from there, the first fruits came when pictures were able to see a lot of features done automatically, identify people, solve the initial problem, which is identity problem. He just said, you know what, let's just keep expanding. And then we started, a lot of people were taking pictures of another picture. So they take a photo of probably a calendar or anything, or something on the TV. They just pick that particular face, which became a new problem. How can we solve this new problem? Then we kind of came with this concept of proof of life, where we kind of ask you to snap a picture, your normal picture, and we kind of ask you to randomly do another gesture. Probably we ask you to smile, or ask you to close your eyes, or ask you to frown. Then we are able to actually check if it matches any of these criteria that we already set initially. If it matches, then we've been able to pass the first side of proof of life for us. So it actually reduced fraud for us and was able to prove that beyond any other thing that this identity is kind of true.
So that example, so that audience have a sense of, this is basically you're trying to protect from somebody taking a picture of a picture and uploading it themselves.
Yes.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yes.
Very cool. So I think one of the things, as I travel around and talk to customers, I hear commonly this concern about skill set gap, right? That not enough machine learning scientists, not enough people with machine learning. Emily, what's your sense? How have you guys gone about, because I know you guys are nonprofit, you're always constrained by resource and you're trying to have a big impact. What was your, how did you guys solve that problem? How did you guys go about it?
I mean, for us, that was a priority from the beginning. And we knew that we had this data set, that we had this mission critical issue that we needed to move forward on quickly. And so we've actually had a data scientist on the team for a long time, and have actually grown to 3 now. So we have 3 data scientists on staff working day in, day out on this issue as the issue of child sex trafficking and exploitation requires that kind of analysis.
And are you finding that, because I know you guys using some of the capability within the AWS ML stack around the API services like recognition, do you find using those easy-to-use APIs reduces a bit of a burden on your side vis-a-vis having bigger teams or training more people?
Sure. I mean, just having that capability and able to either scale up or scale down depending on the needs of the situation has been huge.
How about you, Wally? How about kind of the skill set gap? Has that been a...
Yes, initially it was very, very clear for us. We didn't have access to any form of data scientists. We wanted to keep the cost very low. So the whole team kind of took courses. So we kind of like all our engineers to kind of take different courses on AI ML. And that actually, so we knew what the problem was and we took those courses. So each engineer was able to take on a particular challenge in those areas, and that solved a lot of problems for us. And right now, they are also training new engineers that actually come in to actually have those kind of skills.
And as I started saying that we took a mission to make machine learning available to all developers, I keep saying we want to make machine learning so boring that that we reduce the excitement around it. Have you found any value of that? Have you found the stack to be useful for your engineers to go after?
It's been extremely useful because we don't have to do too much work outside what Amazon has actually provided. For example, the proof of life didn't come out of the box. But because of the AI and the responses that we actually got from every request, we're able to kind of innovate around how we can actually make those things useful. So the stack has been extremely useful for us. We didn't have to go around looking for this particular feature, Probably one of those things that we did was like the photo ID, government ID. There's no API to actually confirm if this photo ID is actually correct or not. And using the text feature of that, we're able to extract each of these things. And then we're able to look at some security features in some region of that particular photo ID to be able to identify if this is true, a genuine photo ID or not. So we didn't have to do too much work outside the stack. The stack has been able to, although we did a little manipulation just to make sure that we actually achieve our use case, but we didn't have to do too much work outside the stack.
Good to hear, good to hear. Ray, you had started talking about your team were very open to you, did hackathons, you did build your models. So how was it for you? Like, is access to resources an issue?
Yeah, one of the things I would say is don't neglect telling your story. Because as I think about any mission-driven organization, there's a couple of things that have been very helpful for us in bringing new people on board. Has been tell the story because you're going to draw people who are engaged with that story and cast a vision for where you're going to go. Take some time to figure out excite them about the opportunity to come on board and solve problems that truly change the world. And we saw that really tactically play out as recently we're hiring a director of data science, and the first couple months of the search was pretty normal, and we really didn't get a lot of people signing up for it, so we decided to shoot a couple videos around it, and in the videos I'm really just talking about the mission of compassion, how we're looking to use data science, what we're looking to do as we move forward, and all of a sudden we started getting a lot more candidates. And it was the first time I had seen this happen that probably all 4 of our top 4 or 5 candidates came directly to me through LinkedIn as opposed to going through the normal hiring process. And that happened once we told the story. And that is, everyone here is working from a mission. That mission is powerful. And we want to be able to tell that story to get people engaged.
Awesome. So one other thing I think it's worth, I don't know whether you folks even know this, within AWS, we believe that the skill set gap will continue to be a problem, and there are a few things we have done, and I know I've spoken to Emily, your organization about this. Like, we have now what's known as Machine Learning University that's available to anybody who can come into AWS and look at that, and again, courses for all different persona. It could be a product manager, and there's a machine learning class for, I think it's worth looking at that for folks sitting here who wants to get into that journey. We also have ML Solutions Lab, where we know when you have really technically hard problem where the math or science is not obviously clear, we can bring in our own science expertise to sit with you folks and and solve the problem hands-on with you folks. I think that's a really powerful empowerment because, again, I do believe that this skill set gap would continue to remain. And I think the best bet we have is take silly engineers like me and up level and get them to do something useful for you, right? So it's good to hear. Let's move to a little bit of the culture here, because I think as we talk to our customers, we say AI/ML is as much about technology as it's about culture, right? Which could be how you organize, what is your data policy. You talked about the mission and vision. Would love to hear kind of how, Ray, maybe start with you. How have you observed that? Have you seen the need to be culturally different to embrace this AI/ML in your organization and for your mission?
Very much so. We really did struggle with it just felt like science fiction. We had many people who weren't really hearing the message. And I can't, you said before, I can't state it enough that the key to that was how we organize around customers to solve problems. Our teams are set up around customers. We're not, at no point are we building a solution for the sake of building a solution. So the customer centricity is built into how our teams are set up. It's built into how our culture is set up. And then ultimately, it becomes the product of how we build AI. As we think about AI, even a lot of people in our organization really looked at it as they felt like it would be similar to reporting originally. Like you'd go off and build some sort of report, and then it would come back later with some intelligence. And we really had to work through the AI is a little different than that. It's a little more, it's built into the solutions and experiences we build. So we took a lot of time in it. There's a lot of points in this journey where I would say that I would love it if we were moving faster. And my goal is that we move faster, but it's very important that, at least for us, that we brought people along and help them understand how AI improves experiences, how AI gives us better intelligence as we're making real-time decisions or as the customer is engaging real-time with our solutions. And then on top of that, we then deal with and what you see on TV from an AI standpoint, that does still have an application. There is still a place, if we think about robotics combined with farming, yes, there is a place for that, but that's not necessarily where you jump to. We don't necessarily start with building robots and putting them out in sub-Saharan Africa. That's not our starting point with AI. But there really we had to unwind a lot of perceptions and then explain how it really is part of our customer-centric culture.
So when would you launch these robots then?
Hopefully next week. No.
How about you, Wally? What was your, is that like, as you guys started, with this idea, two of you, did you have to make a shift in how you think about your organization, the culture, as you kind of embarked on this AI/ML journey? And
yes, we started with this manual process, and everybody was used to that manual process of, bring the form, I'll check it, and then we'll move from there. And we kind of saw that wasn't scaling, and it was no-brainer for the adoption, because we couldn't scale. We had a lot of applications in a room. We're locked there. We had hundreds of thousands of applications, and we couldn't just undo it. And so when we built the first version, it was very easy for adoption, because we were able to run like 10 applications at first, and people saw the changes. Like, oh my God, you don't need to check this particular form again, so I can focus on something else. And that relief was on everybody's face. Like, I think you should just build more. And we kept iterating and building, and yes, culturally, people now started learning new things to actually make sure that they are relevant, because that's kind of key, so that nobody's left behind.
Wally, can you contextualize a little bit this notion of, if you have 100,000 applications waiting there and you're processing 10 at a time, what is the impact to that individual who's looking for the credit? Like, because I know you started the journey because you faced it. What was?
The suspense and waiting period. So you could wait for 2 weeks, and then you might not actually qualify for the credit. It's very bad, because you already promised the school, you charge school that, hey, look, I'll pay you next week. And then the application comes back and says, you know what, you do not qualify for this credit, and then the child is out of school. Or there's this business that you are looking at scaling and to feed the family, and the application is there for months. And it was kind of difficult for a lot of our customers. And they kept hammering, can you help us? Can you help us? We kept receiving a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and we just had to do something about it because we couldn't bear it again. We already experienced it ourselves, and then we kind of had to like find the fastest way to actually solve the problem for us.
That's amazing. So these credit requests are not the sorts that I make for home improvement. These are for real livelihood, basic needs of people, and the time is important for them.
Yes,
that's
very, very important.
Great to see what you guys are doing there. How about your organization, Emily? How's that cultural aspect? How important has that been, or is that still a evolving thing for your organization? Would love to understand.
Absolutely, yeah. So for Thorn, of course, our mission, building technology is part of the mission. It's part of developing these tech solutions. And so we are lucky right now that we have 17 software engineers, data analysts, and scientists on staff. For us, it is the crimes against children in this space online require full-time data scientists, software engineers, analysts doing this, among other staff that we have, of course. And so that has been part of it from the beginning, that this needs to be full steam ahead, and of course having the tools to make their jobs easier on the tech side as well. So that has always been part of our culture, and we're excited to keep growing it and keep that culture moving forward.
It's great to hear. So I think we have about 6-7 minutes left. Other than telling everybody in this audience that AWS is great for doing machine learning, what would be your advice be beyond what you already shared with them? Like from just, as you look forward for your organization, Emily, what would be your advice that you could give to audience? So if they want to have a similar mission, if they want to have a similar charter for themselves, how do you see them starting that journey for themselves?
Yeah, I think this may be a simple answer, but I think understanding the data that you have and how you can leverage that data. For us, it was, we had, before we did that survivor survey, we thought that AI and machine learning could help us solve for this problem, for helping with child sex trafficking investigations. But until we had that survivor survey, until we had some ground truth data, then we were able to analyze that, understand how we could build some tech solutions and deliver results at scale, which is what we're doing now.
And so if again, to kind of bring back to the mission you folks have, I almost believe you're just getting started and there's so much. Where do you see this journey for yourself in terms of impact? What would make you feel, we have gotten something done? Is that in terms of response time? Is it in terms of count of children, or is it both?
I mean, for us, it's limiting and narrowing the time it takes to identify a child. And how we do that is going to change with the market. It's going to change with the different types of tools we have. But for us, success is getting to a child fast. If we know that there's a missing child, making sure that we're utilizing all of this technology to try to find that child ASAP. And getting investigators all of the data and information that they can have in these specific cases to be able to find children faster.
It's fascinating what your organization. I'll share something that I learned from Julie last week, the CEO of Thorn, is that a majority of your ads were coming from Backpage at some point, and when Backpage shut down, people said, "Oh, all right, the problem's gone." Now they realize that they have to collect. There are like 10 new sources have emerged where these young kids and children are getting, ads are coming through, and they have to now, instead of monitoring one, have to monitor 10.
Absolutely.
So it's a growing problem for you, and not. And you guys are doing such a phenomenal job. Thank you. How about you, Wally? What would be your advice to the audience, and where do you see your journey progressing in this kind of your mission, core mission?
Yes, so for us, it's, we thought we were just solving the credit problem. We never knew that identity problem was going to show up. So we thought we were just solving just one thing, but we ended up solving so many other things, fraud and some other things. But for us, we are looking at financial literacy, and then financial independence for a lot of low-income earners, where we want to move most of the low-income earners, that are customers, to the middle class, and to be able to have businesses, which they've already started, and to help them actually grow those businesses so that they can then impact more lives and take care of their families. That's kind of important.
And any advice for the audience, if in terms of technology and AI ML, if based on what you've learned through this journey?
So my advice would just be identify the problem first, not really the AI part, but identify what the problem is, and then find out ways by which you can actually apply the artificial intelligence and machine learning. That would be my first. Because we saw that the first thing was identifying people's faces. We never knew that we were going to grow to actually comparing those faces, checking it against photo ID, and also proof of life. We never knew we were going to get to that particular face, at least. But we saw
Fantastic. Great to hear. Thanks a lot, Wally. How about you, Ray?
Yeah, I would say dream big and test small in this case. But we have come out of one hype cycle for AI, but the truth is we're barely scratching the surface of what the capabilities of AI are. And as we think about what are your what if questions? What are the things that you wish you could do? Start thinking about those today, and then test into them small, right? I think about something like poverty. Poverty can't be answered by one company alone. It's a massive issue. But then I think about, well, what if we were able to provide education for children worldwide who are interested in engineering or interested in AI? And what if we had 100,000 new engineers who are ML trained in 10 years, right? What would that do to something like poverty or other challenges that we face? And then what would need to be true today in order to get there, right? How could we, as an example, could we create tailor-made education journeys that allow people to learn and use AI to determine how well they're learning from the material, and then augment the material real time so that they're trained most effectively. As I think about that type of process, we really we start where you are. Everybody in this room is at some point in their journey, and there are always things that you can do from that point. So start there. For those who haven't really begun the AI journey, I would say identify people who are motivated within your organization today, because there are people there who want to be able to use data to solve the problems that you're facing. Start with them and kind of build some sort of customer-centric prototype at that point, or customer-centric test that you're able to take to market and build from there. Everything about this journey, as well as most tech journeys, is going to be incremental. You're not going to build the most advanced AI solution in your first go. So start where you are, identify the motivated people, and then start testing into it. And that journey will ultimately lead to greater success and greater maturity for your team in AI.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ray. Again, I really want to thank Emily, you, Wally, Ray, for allowing us to be in the stage with you and highlight kind of the fantastic work your organization is doing and the impact you're having using AI/ML on social good. And we wish you all the best in your continued journey, and hopefully we'll be able to partner with you more in this journey and come talk about bigger dreams and launching these robots in Hillsides and more countries for you and more kids saved. And I want to thank the audience for spending the afternoon with us. Thank you.
Thank you.